General election set to be the most significant since 1994. All kinds of conversations being had about polling and what the numbers say. But we know it is a crucial poll for the ANC in particular, with the governing party facing dwindling support. You don't need the polls to tell you that, and the prospect of having to engage other parties in a coalition if indeed it fails to win an outright majority. So how does this factor into what we can expect to hear from President Cyril Ramaphosa in his State of the Nation address this evening? Let's get you some analysis. Professor Dirk Kotze is a professor of political sciences at the University of South Africa. Prof, it's always great to get your insights on these issues. And it's a State of the Nation address, yes. It's setting the agenda for South Africa and for the government for the year. It's building up to the budget speech a little later on in the next coming weeks as well. But how much of the elections and how much of a seminal election year this is will actually play into President Cyril Ramaphosa's mindset, do you think, as he takes to the podium this evening?
Well, I think it's going to have more of an impact than any of his previous SONA speeches since 2018, because this is such a decisive year, as you indicated now. For the ANC in the past, they more or less had the guarantee that they will continue as the governing party after the election, and therefore they could present a SONA speech now in the beginning of the year that is indeed for a projection for the year as a whole. This time it's uncertain, because in a year like this with the elections, there's actually two SONA addresses. The first one is this time of the year, the other one is after the election. The one after the election will be determined by what's the outcome of the election, whether there will be a coalition government or not, whether there will be, who will be part of that coalition government, because yes, this SONA speech will be in line with the budget that's going to be presented in a few weeks' time. But the budget was, in a sense, prepared already last year, a major part of the budget. So it's not dependent on what is going to be said tonight or maybe even later on. But I think what is indeed important is that the SONA speech normally follows on the 8th of January statement by the ANC's National Executive Committee. And I think this year's statement that was presented by President Ramaphosa on the 13th of January was, in a sense, already a precursor of the SONA speech, because he paid a lot of attention to the successes or the achievements of the ANC. I think tonight we are going to see something similar. And then he went into a presentation of his economic planning since 2018, or at least since the pandemic, at least, of the revival or the restructuring of the energy and electricity sector, infrastructure, foreign direct investment, as well as the social packages that exist, and so on. So I expect that is going to be what we are going to hear to a large extent, but through the lens of the election. So it is going to be presented as something in a very positive light, as being buoyant, as being that this is what you can expect of the ANC after the election. Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely going to be that blurring of party and state, whether we like it or not, right? And we can expect one section of the president's speech to be a copy and paste job. There will be a section of the speech that talks about how many houses have been built, how many people have electricity and running water. We can expect those statistics to be repeated ad nauseum, as they were repeated at the January 8th statement as well. But the question is, Professor Kotze, how much of SONA still has that agenda-setting power that the State of the Nation address is actually meant to have? Well, I think tonight's one relatively little, for the reasons that I've mentioned now. I think in the past also, in the last number of years, it had less of an impact, because many of the announcements were made by President Ramaphosa during the year, very key announcements. And he did not wait until the beginning of the year for his SONA address in order to announce it as a package. So I think what we've become used to now is that normally there are relatively little or few new announcements that's included in the SONA speech, and rather more what we are talking about now, that looking back, making an assessment of the past year or few years back, and then sort of presenting a package of what has been announced over the past year and bringing them together, trying to integrate them into a type of a comprehensive plan that President Ramaphosa wants to present to everyone. And I think one part of the audience that's important for him is the international community and in the international financial markets. He wants to present something which looks solid, which looks stable, which looks predictable, and that it won't come up with unpredictable, unprepared ideas of announcements tonight.
Professor Kotze, all of this takes place in kind of a messy context, doesn't it? I'm talking about the Electoral Matters Bill, and we're going to hear more from the Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs on the submissions insofar as that bill is concerned. And you yourself, Prof, made a submission on the bill, the fact that it lacks clarity, particularly around the issue of independent candidates. Ideally, these are issues that would have been resolved not mere months before the election.
Indeed so. I'm slightly concerned about this and that they waited so long for this particular aspect now, which is about the funding of independent candidates, but also some other aspects which they've included in this. And strictly speaking, these things must have been resolved much earlier on because they were not part of the issues that were dependent on court judgments or anything like that. So I hope that there will be enough time for the IEC to be able to incorporate all of this, because once the election date is announced, and we have heard now it's within 15 days, that means around about the 23rd of February, then it closes also any new form of registrations for voters, and that to a large extent is the official beginning of the final countdown to the election. So then these things must be in place.
Yeah, absolutely. And it brings us very nicely to the issue of voter turnout, right? That's going to be and continues to be, not only here at home, it's a global phenomenon, but the issue of voter turnout is going to be incredibly important in this year's election, particularly getting that youth vote, those 14 million young people who don't even bother to register, well, they didn't in the last general election, for them to come out and vote.
Yes, that's the critical one. And I think the party that will succeed in mobilizing a significant number of young people, that means those in their 20s and early 30s, they will do well. They will do much better proportion than the other parties. Last time the voter turnout was 66%, before it was 73%, so it was a dramatic decline. I am not sure that we are going to see a significant increase in the voter turnout, but so long as it doesn't go below 60%, that's absolutely critically important.
Yeah, absolutely.
That it doesn't decline even further than where it is at the moment.
Professor Dirk Kotze, it's a pleasure talking to you this evening, Professor of Political Sciences at the University of South Africa.